What food has made you wonder, how did our ancestors discover that this was edible? As a Norwegian, lutefisk fish, it's traditional lye made from stockfish, which is put in a solution of water and lye. It has to be put back into water again, since after the lye has done its thing it reaches a pH level of 11 to 12. All the other stuff we eat is kinda understandable, mostly fermented fish or dried stuff, but lye, really? It is freaking delicious though. Fugu, hands down. Me, goddammit no Steve. I'm not eating that. The last 400 people who tried it died. Steve, well yeah. But I tried it a little different this time. Classic Steve. Shrimp. You know those little bugs that live in the dirty water? I bet those taste great once you get rid of the antennae, the creepy crawly legs and the head. You know how babies and animals always explore by putting stuff in their mouth that basically whatever it is, someone somewhere has gone. I wonder if I can eat it. It either worked out or okay B, not so good, let's not eat that again. C, death. Prawns. Who looked at those eldritch bottom feeding horrors and thought they'd go nice with a flesh pink sauce? No thanks, pal. No thanks. I often think similarly about crabs. Armed and armored sea spiders? Looks delicious. Rhubarb. The leaves are poisonous, but the stalk is delicious. That's why we should all remember John, the first to eat the leaves. Rhubarb is also the word that extras in movies are told to say over and over again because it makes for good background noise. Potatoes. I want to know who first dug up one of these ugly little dirt tumors and went, yep, I'm going to put that in my mouth. Seems like a good idea. Ugly little dirt tumors. That is the best name for anything ever. Vegemite. I understand it's man-made and all, but how did they smell it and think this'll be great on toast? To be fair, Vegemite in the wild has a different, more bitter taste. Originally it was used to ward off drop bears, but obviously someone thousands of years ago decided to eat it and see what it tasted like. So this might be slightly off topic, but it is related to this thread. I have a book about surviving in the wilderness. It talks about wild edibles and how to determine if something is edible or not. Steps. 1. Pick up item. Press against skin. Wait an hour. 2. No problems from that. Now mash that item on one part of your skin. Wait an hour. 3. No rash or anything. Now press that food against your lip. Wait an hour. 4. No signs of anything bad. Now press that food against your tongue. Wait an hour. 5. Now eat a tiny bit of it. Wait an hour, then from there it is basically eating small pieces, working up to big pieces, and seeing if it's edible. Edit. Some people are saying wait as long as 8 hours between steps. My steps were for starvation conditions. Note that the skin you rub whatever it is on should be a sensitive area like your inner elbow or where your neck meets your jaw. Oysters. How could someone think to eat something that looks like it came out of a bull's nose? Whoever thought there must be some edible part of this poisonous fugu fish, and I'm going to find it, was a madman. Some emperor who forced subjects to eat every part, but everyone only gets a specific part. You live and are healthy, you get land. You die, well, shit, not your problem anymore. Durian. Let's take this spiky ass fruit that smells like shit and crack it open, see some yellow gooey shit, and start eating it. It smells rotten. It's the consistency of budgers. It tastes okay, I guess. And an hour after you eat it, you start belching up sickening burps. One night I ate a big bite of shrimp scampi, and it had the biggest ball of garlic on the bread. So yummy. About half hour later I chugged a Red Bull. What resulted was the worst smelling burps I've ever produced. I ended up at a bar on a Friday night, and I kept trying to swallow down these mustard gas burps. I could tell some of the toxic gases escaped from the corner of my lips and the faces on those surrounding me. I will never forget. Sea urchins, for example. I guess every tribe had a guy who said, "Frick it, I saw this Japanese guy on YouTube who actually got the really spiky venomous kind of sea urchin and tried to eat it. Note that sea urchins for eating look more like pebbles than the spiky balls of death that typically come to mind when you think sea urchin. Anyway, back to the YouTuber. His method of removing the spikes is actually to cup the sea urchin between two bowls, then shake the bowls so that the spikes all get broken. His verdict: edible, but not a lot of it to begin with. Go for the round pebbles. Cheese. Who was like, I'm gonna eat the solidified part of this bad milk. And the process to make cheese is so complicated I can't figure out how it was discovered in the first place. It's really not that complicated if you understand how we used to preserve food before refrigerators or sedentary society. You boil it, salt it, and pour it in a container that's portable, which in this case was probably the lining of a goat ancestor's stomach. Someone did that to expired milk and a somewhat edible goop came out. Then we spent 10,000 more years perfecting it, and now it's goddamn delicious. Yogurt. Hey man. This is pretty good. What is it? Don't worry about it. Conversation 2000 years ago. Yogurt. We are desperate. Just eat it. Mushrooms. How did they discover which ones were edible? Maybe they used them to poison their enemies and accidentally used an edible one, and thus discovered that some of them can actually be eaten? Who knows? They cold observed animals eating certain types and avoiding others. Artichoke. Let's take that spiky ass weed that makes your hands taste better for days and boil it for an hour or two, so we can scrape a tiny bit, if nothing, off the leaves with our teeth. How hungry was that dude? Edit. To be clear, I love artichokes, and they do not require butter or mayo to be delicious. I was at a business lunch as a grown-ass man in my 40s, having never eaten artichoke, and the other guy orders a grilled one as an appetizer. 5 minutes later I'm still chewing on my first leaf, trying not to show the "why do people eat this?" face when I notice him scraping the leaf with his teeth. That information would have been very valuable ahead of time. Civet coffee. Although more of a recent discovery, 18th century, but who in their right mind decided, I'm going to make coffee with this animal's poop? I'm surprised I see no mention of coffee in general. How on earth did people figure out to pick the berries, ferment them, dry them, roast them, grind them, put that into boiling water, filter it out again, and drink the fluid? Surströmming, you know, the Swedish fish that is put underground to rot. I like it was invented accidentally. Salt used to be pretty expensive, so some traders didn't use enough to preserve the fish properly, but sold it anyway. When they came back they were surprised when the townsfolk asked if they had any more of the fish prepared in that way. But why would somebody eat it? I mean, the way it smells is terrible. The answer is always grains. I can't figure out how our ancestors discovered that prehistoric varieties of wheat or barley were edible. Good question. I can offer you some insight there. When my dad was a kid, on a farm that was just barely more than a homestead, they chewed barley seed for a snack. They didn't have money for gum anyway. As kids out exploring, they hunted too, to supplement the family food supply. Even in the 1980s, when I was a kid, we'd carry a gun with us while exploring the woods. Sometimes we'd get a pheasant to take home for supper. But the way it works is that you're walking mostly aimlessly, running your hand through the grass, and you pull off a seed head and pick the sharp horns and chaff off the seeds and pop them into your mouth. If you chew it long enough you get a sort of a gum. Just the gluten is left. You've dissolved and swallowed the nutritious parts of the germ. Barley is tastier than wheat, though wheat makes a better gum. There are plenty of other wild seeds too, though many varieties of grass have tiny seeds. There is lots to snack on if you have eyes and knowledge. It also might be that you come across a berry patch while out and about, and you just pick and eat as you go. You carry some home, and it gets added to the family meal. Maybe you fill your hat with berries. Some days, you come home with a bit of meat and some sort of fruit or vegetable. Often, nothing. If harvest has already happened, you stop by the granary before heading out and fill up your pocket with some seed. That's an ancient thing. The very definition of hunter-gatherer. but it didn't really die out like people seem to think it did. It was a fairly significant part of my dad's diet in the 1950s, and I was practicing vestiges of it in the 1980s. I'm sure hunters still do. Century eggs. Take duck eggs. Wrap them in hay and mud and ashes. Legend has it horse urine used to be used too, because it's alkaline. Wait a few weeks/months. Break them open, whereupon they are grey and jelly-like and pungent, smelling slightly of ammonia. Boil and eat. I love them, but I really have to wonder who thought that eating them was a good idea in the first place. Or perhaps, how hungry they were, that eating them seemed like a good idea. They might have just forgotten the egg, and one day they were so desperate for food they remembered about that egg, and said frick it. That's the story of Worcestershire sauce. Some dude had a barrel of stuff that didn't taste so good at first, so he just forgot about it for a year or two, or more, and went back to try it again, and was like, oh damn, this is fire now. Saffron. Who the frick figured out that the stamen from a specific crocus flower, when picked and dried then steeped in warm liquids, was going to be delicious? Easy. At first they wanted to extract the color and use it to dye stuff. Then they discovered that it also tastes good,